So before we reconvene with our formal part of this hui, we've got a special occasion which we're going to do once we've opened up again. Yep. All right. And for this, we're going to invite Bruce Henson to join us wherever he is. Oh, there he is. How could you miss him? And we'll invite you to come up the front there if we may, Bruce. This is the part where we embarrass the heck out of you, Mr. Henson.
Well, Bruce. I've been given the honour of and while Bruce might look nice and relaxed here, I can assure you inside he's a mess. Because I had a discussion with Bruce just after he announced to me that he was leaving this organisation, and I was very forthright in what I told him. And I'm sure your parents are married, and you can see because it was a disappointment to hear Bruce was going to leave us, you know. So yeah, we did have a frank discussion, but today, because there are many witnesses, and I don't want to end up with an employment issue about abusing staff, this will be much more moderate. So Bruce, you've been 21 years with us. Yeah, I know. And I would have spent 13 or 14 of those years with you, Bruce. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's been a long time, a good service. It really has been. And you're one of those staff members that, no matter what's happening, always has that darn smile on your face. Yeah, that one there. Never shows stress, doesn't break under pressure. And you actually have worked very, very hard. I know that every councillor, the mayor, the councillors and the staff have always enjoyed working with you. And you have their total respect. Yeah, so when you leave us and you're driving around the district, of course of the length of time you've been with us, you'll be going past that wastewater plant, that water treatment plant, that stormwater job, and you'll know everything that's happening in this district. And that sort of knowledge is not replaced easily, though. It takes a long, long time. For you, it took a little longer than most, but you got there. So on behalf of the councillors and staff, here is a little thank you. Thank you. Okay. Very nice. That's very nice. I thought so too. So yeah, congratulations.
Thanks.
Now that's not the end of it, because from me and Karen, this is a personal one. And I'm not sure how it fits with the CEO's policy on alcohol in the workplace.
She's shaking her head.
She's shaking her head. It does have a little, because I've opened the package to have a look. It does have a little sign on the back of it that says drink responsibly.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, well, that's up to you, but yeah, it does advise you to do that. But yeah, no, it's a special bottle, Bruce, for a couple of reasons. One is when you drink it, I want you to think of us all, okay? Think of us all. Okay. And if you're really missing us, you can drink a lot, drown your sorrows. Okay. But inside there's also, because you've left us once and come back and you're leaving us again, I'll put an application form in there.
Yeah. The member stuff.
I would be happy to leave. So there's an application form there. If you want to come back and join us, mate, you're welcome anytime. Be lovely.
Very nice offer. Thank you.
Well done.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate that. Yeah, very overwhelming. Not that good with surprises. So yeah, that caught me a bit off guard when I saw Wendy and Karen from my team lurking in the tea room. I was like, what's going on here? But yeah, thank you heaps. Yeah, it's been a fantastic time. I've really enjoyed my time with TCDC. It's been amazing. As John mentioned, I was here and I left and I came back, so that's how much I enjoyed it. And it's been really good. And I've had heaps of amazing texts, emails, and drop-ins since I announced I was leaving. So that's actually been really humbling. Yeah, I'm not amazing with praise, so so I've kind of been training myself a little bit through that. So yeah, it's been. So thank you heaps. Yeah, and that's very, very generous. So yeah, so thank you.
I hope Steve enjoys it too, mate. Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
Just stay there, Bruce.
Well, yes, Bruce, you know, I've sent you a text. I was actually just before he sits down, I would really quite like the council to have a resolution on the table to thank Bruce for his 21 years of service. And I note that he's been here longer than the lives of his children. So that doesn't have to be in the resolution, but I would really like an official thank you to Bruce for all of the work that he's done in the various roles that he's led at the council. And I'm happy to move that.
And I'm happy to second that.
So look, I'm sure we can get that resolution put together very, very quickly.
Do we need a staff report?
Can you knock that together?
Yeah, just give me 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a resolution. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Just checking. Carried.
Not even maybe.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Can I sit down now?
Okay, thank you for all the team that came in for that, much appreciated. Do we have a draft resolution that we can?
Chair? Yes, we do.
I do apologise, I always feel guilty about this, going through a process of saying, we'll take a lunch break, and by the way, you guys have to work through your lunch break. But I get over it fairly quickly. Sorry, guys. So we have a draft resolution there. Jenna, can we make that a little bit, thank you. That's much better, thank you.
We just need to put the number. I don't think you need to put the agency.
You could just have the status quo funding would make sense, I think.
Is that where you want the stage marketing removed? It's okay. That's fair.
Do we need to reference, because in this has got year 1, year 2, year 3, and they're all different numbers. We need to reference a number.
Chair,
Sorry, John.
just in regard to 3, which I don't think does sum up what people were asking, but I'd like to see that extended to include and report back to council.
I'm sure that's easy enough to do. Can we put that in there? Thank you, John.
And just the dates for the draft LTP, please, Ari.
Could we amend the report back to council before the with any changes? So we need to report back, then make changes, and then LTP.
Do we need to be? Okay. Okay, so we don't need to be specific. Okay. Okay. Happy with that? All right. Still reading?
Just also just the dates for the draft LTP, if you could pop them in.
We've got the request to review, the chief executive restart within review. But performance, so what about the funding split between us and Hauraki?
Including funding split between,
We're talking about the performance, but we're certainly having a conversation about the funding split. That's
between us and Hauraki. Yes, which then that might constrain us in terms of if we decide to go with a different model. But there's no reason why we can't have a discussion about it.
performance
And funding.
and funding, yeah.
Okay with that? All right, thank you. All right. We'll need a mover for that, please. Happy to move? Reka, seconder? Delhi, all those in favour? Those against? Carried, thank you. Thank you, Lorna.
Can we please,
Oh, sorry, hang on.
can we please move to 2.6 because we have Kirsten here for
Okay.
the information centre, and it'll be
Yeah.
good for Graham too, who's,
Okay.
he's been very patient
Yeah.
waiting for this item, so can we do that one?
Sure thing.
Thank you.
So we're going to move to item 2.6 because Kirsten's here, Graham's here as well, and thank you for your patience, Graham. I know it's been a long day for you and you still got to drive home. So we'll move to item 2.6 and then come back on track after that.
So I'll take again this report as read. And also again, this is around the funding of a service. And we've had quite a few different discussions over the last few months about the funding model of this service and potential options of how it could be delivered. So today is again looking at a steer about the funding of these services and the different options. As we say in the report, the steer that we've been directed, or have been receiving, is that most of the service is being delivered around the different wards is satisfactory. We can look at, we will be looking at a review of KPIs and contracts. The only one that there has been some discussion and debate about is around the delivery of service in the Thames ward, and there are options that we can discuss around that.
Thank you, Lorna.
Just that there's an amendment, sorry, that under the recommendations on line 2, it says option 1, district hub and reduced area hubs, that is an error that needs to come out. That is a status quo.
So
Sorry,
just take out those words.
can we repeat that without the coughing in the background?
Sorry, just under number 3 for recommendations.
Yes. Item 3, number
Item
2.
3, number 2, where it says option 1, district hub and reduced area hubs, those district hub and reduced area hubs is to be crossed out.
So it should just say retain a status quo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So delete district hub and reduced area hubs. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the report, please. Terry and Reka to receive the report. All those in favour? Thank you. We'll open it for discussion. There's nothing else you want to add at this point? Okay, so we'll open it for discussion and invite input from councillors, please.
Yep.
Terry?
Yes. So first I'd like to make a couple of points of corrections. On page 166, under Whangamata, the funding there is 42,580. It's actually 52,000. So that's not incorrect. And also if you go to page...
Sorry, Terry, can we just make
Page
sure we got that.
116, under
So
the middle
one-
there,
Page 166,
166.
23, 24.
Under the, got the information area hubs, Coromandel, Paranui, Tora, Whangamata, and it's got 42,580 there, and that's not correct.
What's the
Well,
number?
it's 52,000, and that's why the 28,000 difference that we are talking about, I would like to talk about.
So can I just clarify that? Does that line up with your information, Lorna?
Yes, that is correct. What, where the LTP was done in, the last round.
Sorry, Kirsten, turn your mic on, please, because we'll need to.
When the LTP was done in the last round, the 42, 43 figures were carried over into the LTP, so that table has just come straight from the LTP. We had a correction which internally to add on an extra $10,000. It was an internal.
To add on the $10,000.
To bring it up to 52,580, yes.
Yeah, so we've been, at
So you
community
are
board, we
correct.
understand it's 52
That's
and the
correct,
28.
yes.
And so that's the difference. And the other one is just if I go to page 170,
Sorry, Terry, before we go back.
Yeah.
That's for the 23, 24 year. The other years are straight off the LTP? So
Yeah,
that
so-
they still stand, or do they need fixing?
well, they need fixing obviously because it's 52 currently, and we're going to talk about the balance in a minute if I can, please. They,
Just wanted to get those numbers right.
yeah,
in
52
mind.
is what I understand that we've been told at community board is the number that comes through to the community board for the information centre from council.
Right, could we
Sorry, just a point of clarification, it looks like there's been a transposition error in the new report from the old report and taking the table from the LTP. So you're correct, Terry, the figures that you're saying is correct.
Yes, thank you. And if I can just add 170 on the financial considerations at the top there. If you look down there, it says 2026-24, and I'm presuming that means 27, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, on page 170, just the year.
Yeah, that's right. Just some
26,
clarification. for
27.
us. So my discussion today around this, as you know, and it's been one of our pets for a long time, is, and you've heard the passion today as well. So really the key is that information centres are not a checkout counter. They're a place for people to come and spend time and find out what's good about the town. So it's one of the key things around them. And we've got three key assets in Whangamata that we really value, and that is the information centre, the library and the swimming pool. And they're funded through the system around the same value. The libraries, we're lifting from 74,000 to 80,000. The pool gets 80,000. The three funding models that we want to contain. These assets operate all of them on face-to-face interaction with people and communication. And we really want to continue that because we think the face-to-face is far better, as you know, from the Thames kiosk that hasn't worked, was offered to us, and we said no, and it's turned out to be not the right people, not the right thing that people want to have when they're coming to town and want to spend time finding out what the town's about. They talk about them, what the assets are, and often they'll stay longer if they get a good reception, which is the face of the town. We've got over 30,000 people in town over the summer, so it gets really busy, and the information centre really cranks. The extra funding of 80K that we've, the 28K to make it $80,000 is $1 or less than $1 on the rates, less than $1 on the rates. We've been funding this for over 3 years out of our retained earnings, and we're asking that information centres are all based on the need of the town, just like we do libraries. Libraries are a huge expense to some towns, but we pay that district funded, yet we pay our own library out of our own money. So, but the need of the town is what's required, and that's what we focus on. What does the town need to make it focus? So we looked at that. So for $1, we can get the funding model that we need and works for our town, and we can move forward. If you look at the proposed for the business associations coming up, they're based not on funding models, they're based on figures and other things. So then they'll be modelled for what the towns want in their own associations, and that's what we're asking here. Our town's happy to do this. Happy to pay for libraries and all those things, but we just want some support around this for that money. So we asked the 28K for Whangamata Information Centre. is moved to a district funding for that extra $28,000 for a cost of $1. I'd like to have consideration of that, please.
Thank you, councillor Walker. I'm going to go to Rekha. Did you have it? So Rekha, and I'm just going to also ask that we keep our discussion to one discussion point per councillor, please. And partly in the interest of time, but also if you can line up the discussion points that you want to make and try and keep them to one discussion point per councillor, please. So Rekha.
I just wanted to ask the question if we had had there been any progress on understanding alternatives for the Thames Information Centre? I know that it's listed here as some of the additional feedback that we have, but and I clearly see the need. Has any work been done?
So yes, we have had an interested party come to council wanting to know how we're going to progress. So what we're really looking for is a resolution from council which would enable us to go up for expression of interest in the early next year. So there is people interested in operating something in Thames.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay, so.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Just following up on what was just said. As far as Thames goes, it's great that somebody's shown an interest in the area to take on the information centre, but we've seen that happen a number of times, and that sort of comes and then that falls over. I'd like to see it incorporated with destination hierarchy. Coromandel is one of the options possibly to be explored as well, and I know you are. I'm just reinforcing that's what I would like to see for Thames.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Councillor Rodley.
So on the table on page 166, and taking account of Councillor Walker's comment that the 42 is actually 52, how historically have those numbers been arrived at? Are they based on a population, or is it based on what community groups been willing to run the thing for, or how? I guess what I'm trying to say is, are we going to go out of policy if we start adjusting these figures, or have we got freedom?
So what we've budgeted for in the LTP is just what we've put in the table. So if there was more wanting to be allocated to another, for one particular information centre, that would be an additional amount that we would factor into the LTP budget, which you haven't at the moment. But in terms of the way that this was calculated, when the agreement started, which was some time ago, there was a base rate that was across all of them. And then that's just been CPI, that's just been applied across year on year.
So that base rate was based on?
I'd have to go back to, because I think they've been running now for probably before my time. So I'd have to go back to how that was calculated originally, but it's just been the base rate just year on year that we've been calculating it on. I can go and find that information for you, Martin.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Grant, please.
Yeah, look, just something that I think would be really helpful when we are looking at these sort of numbers is to have some extra columns in here so we actually understand what the cost is per site, because some are funded through one particular fund and then additional funds are provided somewhere else. And I also think that we're providing effectively low-cost leases, you know, 350, although one of them is paying 5.7. So the comparisons again are not necessarily all that fair between them. So something that enables us to balance it up, because I also think that 350 should be seen as the value that it actually is in the true sense as to what that lease would have been if it had been a commercial arrangement.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. No more? Okay, so I'm going to bring us back to the recommendations on page 165. The only thing that concerns me slightly is that we've got item 2, which gives us essentially option 1, option 2, or option 3, and we've got to decide on one of those options. If we look at the point that Councillor Walker's made on page 166 about Whangamata, where the number of 42,580 should in fact be 52, if we go with status quo, then what we're seeing is effectively a reduction in the LTP for the following 3 years. That doesn't seem to be tracking in the right path. So there's 2 options. We can either agree to CPI adjustments for 24, 25, 25, 26, 26, 27 for Whangamata in line with what they're starting from, otherwise they're going backwards, or we can address that with Whangamata by recommending that the additional top-up funding comes from Community Board, and councillors have a discussion about supporting Community Board funding, which is a separate item for today. So can I get some input, please, from, sorry, I'll come to 2 seconds. Can I get some input from Laura and your team about how to line up the Whangamata numbers so that they're not going backwards?
So again, we can just re-clarify that in the table and amend it so that it is actually the 52, I think it was that Terry started with. So that was, as I said, there was an error in the transposition of the LTP figures to this report.
Yep.
So we'll just amend that to reflect that number.
But the following years?
Yeah.
Okay, so they would be CPI tracked?
Yes.
Okay, accordingly. Thank you.
So can I just clarify? So the error here is in the printed report that we have, and not in the information that goes behind it that you guys have. Excellent. So if we adopted option 1 as it is, that we wouldn't be adopting the table that's in the report. We'd be adopting what's behind the scenes. So we're safe in making that decision, knowing that your Whangamata will get the 53 or. So that's how that's what it stands at. So we don't need to put anything in the resolution about any Whangamata, or we can just adopt it as it is.
That's essentially what I was aiming at, as long as we're comfortable with that.
So through the chair, so what I'm asking for is that you have the increased 28, underneath that says the Whangamata Centre will receive 30,000 top up. It's actually $28,000 is the request, not 30. So if you take the 52 and 28, you get to the number required. So we're asking that to be included into the LTP, that extra
So
funding.
that's not part of the recommendations.
No, well, I have to make an amendment, would I?
Okay, so what I'm proposing is that previously has been funded from Community Board.
Retained earnings.
Yes, so what I would suggest is that becomes part of the Community Board grant and discretionary funding conversation that we're going to have in the next item.
Yeah, but Len, we're funding the libraries, we're funding all these other things through, and they're district funded, and we fund our own library. Surely this is aligning itself with another service group that should be looked at, the needs about what they need.
We'll work on the resolutions that are in front of us, Councillor Walker. So, Martin.
So is there, I'm reading here, information centres are district funded, but presumably a community board would have the ability, just like the Thames does for our grants, to actually say we want to put an extra $10 per person or something onto our local rate to fund something else. Presumably that's an option. So an information centre could operate with a mix of district and local funding. That's permissible.
That's my understanding, and that's the way it's been done in the past.
Well, if I talk to this, we could have this as locally funded and we'd have no trouble at all. But it became district funded some years ago, and we talked about locally funding, and it didn't come into the long-term plan like that. So like libraries, which are district funded mostly and mixed of locally funded, you get two different variations, and like we're going to talk for business associations, they will be looking at what their needs are for their town, and that'll be funded districtly as well.
So I just want to, if it's okay through the chair, can I just clarify? So what you're asking on behalf of Whangamata is for the 52 district funded plus an extra 28 to take it to, what's that, 80,000? Okay. I mean, if I was a ratepayer of another area, I would look at that and say, why is Whangamata over twice that of Tairua, Pauanui, 3/4 again of Thames? I'm just asking that as a devil's advocate. That's what people would say, and I don't currently have a good reason, a good enough information.
You could say
to
the
know.
same about the
Very-
library. Hold a sec, I
Please.
just need
No,
to, through the chair,
No,
I'm allowed to respond
so
to the person.
We're going to do this. We're going to refer the question to Donna for clarification on our ability to mix funding sources. So we'll do that first so that we've got the information that we need to discuss this and make sure we get the information right. So Donna, can you help us out with this, please?
Thank you. So through the chair, we can't mix district and locally funded through the funding model for, like say if it's a district funded activity, the only way that I could suggest that you could, in essence, top that up would be locally would be to do that through like a local grant process or something like that, because you can't mix, and Hayden can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't mix the district and local funding in a district funded activity. A lot of we would have to change, our models, and we'd have to change some of the rating models and everything to be able to do that.
Thank you, Donna. So there's a couple of things come out of this. First of all, I'm coming back to what I don't see there's any reason why Whangamata at community board level can't make an additional contribution if they so decide at community board level. But secondly, if we're going to go back and revise this resolution for Whangamata on a district-wide basis, then we would have to do it for all of the other parts of the district as well. All of the other.
Sorry, through the chair, I don't follow that. It's what each area requires to do their business. And we've figured it out, and we tried this 3 or 4 times when the information saying we're broke. We know the numbers that work. We're paying them out of the retained earnings, which is not the right place to give these kind of fundings to. It's district funder. We fund other areas that are district funded when we pay local. So we're not asking for more than $1 to go into this plan to support this problem out. And it's been around for the last 3 years.
We're going to let the other council.
Can I suggest a way through, Your Worship? I hope it's a way through.
No, not yet.
I've got an exit strategy.
No, I'm going to let the other councillors have a conversation around this. So, yeah.
Well, mine's part of the conversation, Your Worship.
So I'm going to go to Peter first, and then I'll come to you. And if you're going to propose that we put the motion, I'm going to say no. So, Councillor Rebel.
I'm inferring that for 5 of the 6 areas, Coromandel Town, Pauanui, etc., that the current performance of the information centres is kind of there or thereabouts. It's okay and they're happy with it. That's not the case for Thames. So Thames not only is our community board, but our people in the community, it's up there with the Corporate Roundabout, Mary Street and the information centre. They're the things that people want to moan about, apart from potholes. So, and I don't mean that I shouldn't be using that word moan. I can't see how we're going to get an effective information centre solution for Thames with this level of funding, given what the level of funding is, 50 grand, and what the demand and expectation is.
not to open a can of worms, but I guess this comes back to something that councils around the country have been struggling with information centres in general, is that they used to be able to get more than half of their funding through commissions before everybody booked their travel online. And so the legacy arrangements for information centres or iSites no longer are able to access external sources of funding. They utilise a lot of volunteer time. And they depend largely on volunteer contribution and low-cost leases of council-owned properties.
Can I just say that, thank you for that, Mitch. I think Councillor Revel has made a really, really good point. And I'm going to say to Councillor Walker and to Graham, because you're in the room, I think that the information centres, and I'm leaving Thames out of this because it's not manned, all do a fantastic job. They are a critical and essential part of our communities. They deserve funding. But if we're going to have a conversation about information centre funding, then it's got to be equitable and it's got to be across the district. So if we're going to have a conversation about whether Whangamata needs another 30 grand a year to operate, and I don't disagree with that, and Graham, you do a great job, but we need to have that conversation across all of the information centres. Have we got enough information, or have we got the right resolution here in front of us to make that decision? I'm not sure that we do, because we're being asked to implement option 1, which is retain the status quo. And I don't think that, from what I'm hearing, that is a strong enough resolution to address the issues that we've got with Thames, with Whangamata, and what is coming down the road.
Could I just add one point, Nillian? Just that, again, it's around the funding, the quantum of money, for how much we allocate in the LTP. So the way services are delivered, again, that's something that we're having conversations with the providers at the moment, knowing that Thames has got some other ways that can be delivered. We're hearing from Whangamata that an additional 30 grand is required, potentially from Thames some additional money is required. If that's the case, if more money is going to be allocated, that will have to be into the LTP, and there will be a funding implication on that. So just want to put that on the table just to remind councillors it's about the money at the moment as well.
I think councillors are well aware that there are funding implications. Councillors want to make decisions around that, but we don't have the information, or we don't have the options, is what I'm saying. So what the option 1 is status quo. Option 2 and 3 go sideways. So the question that I'm going to ask councillors is, do we want the team to come back with some options which give us alternative figures on which we can make a decision across the district, not just Whangamata or Thames? So I'm going to go to John and then Robin and then Rekka, please.
Thank you. So nice to be able to speak. What I was going to say, Your Worship, before was, look, Coromandel Information Centre operates in the smallest little space on the tiniest little shoestring budget you've ever seen. They can barely stand side by side in the information centre. And I would love, so much love, to have more money to do more up there, but we haven't got it. And I think what we need to do is support Councillor Walker, let him put a resolution forward for the extra 30,000 he wants, have a vote on it, see how it falls, because I think I know how it'll fall, but at least Councillor Walker will have had the opportunity to put it before the rest of the councillors, and it'll either stand or fall. And bearing in mind that, as you said, Lorna, any increase in the funding for any information centre is going to impact on the rates, and we have worked so hard to get the rates to where they are at the moment. Okay, so look, hey Terry, I'll even second your motion pro forma for the extra funding to just to put the matter to rest, simply. So yeah, try your motion.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Robin.
So I was just looking at the table on page 166 and did a little back of the envelope calculation. At the moment, the Southeast Ward has 3 information centres, which take up 42% of the budget. By adding an extra 30,000 K onto that, the Southeast Ward would be receiving 53% of the budget for this fund. And so my question to the rest of the councillors is, do you think that adequately reflects where our spending needs to be on these visitor services? Because I would ideally like a more even split, or a split that was considering the number of visitors that are going to a particular area. So we've, in the report that's to come on the business associations, there's been a couple of different splits of, we could do this based on this metric, whereas actually what we've been presented with here has no splits on any sort of metric. So in the interest of moving on, I would like us to just adopt one of the ones that's there and just not be here till we're all old.
Thank you.
Can I speak to that?
I'm going to go to Reka.
I've got pins and needles. It's been up in the air that long. I just wanted to say, and we all understand that there is definitely a need for TIMS, and we don't know what the solution will look like, and we don't know what that will cost. So at this point, I think if we're going to have the conversation about fair and equitable, I think that is okay. There seems to be a relatively even split there across the different wards. We're going to fair and equitable. Anybody that's open to or wanting to prop their information centres up locally, that be on them. And the solution for Thames, again, anything above the 53K that they've got there would need to be supported locally. And that is a fair and equitable approach.
Thank you. Can I come back to Donna? If we have a model where we have an agreement on those base numbers on a district funded basis, and individual community boards have the ability to top those up, is that workable?
Through the chair, they could top that up through grant funding, but they would still need to budget for that in the long-term plan. They would still need to have budgets for it.
At district level, it only gets complicated if it's a mixture of district.
They could use their local grant money to top it up.
All right. Thank you. Terry, I'm going to go past you. You've spoken about 4 or 5 times and we're clear on your views. So no disrespect.
Disrespectful because I need to respond to Robin's question.
Okay.
Over the summer, we have 130,000 people arrive in our area.
Councillor Walker, I'm going to go to Delhi, and I understand the point you're making, but I'm going to follow the process here. So thank you. Delhi, please.
Sadly, I'm feeling like this is cart before the horse again, because I think part of that broader conversation about destination Hauraki Coromandel, where there could be models of, for example, the Thames needs an information centre. That kiosk in the mall is horrendous, in my opinion. There could be a discussion around reduced DHC services, but them being housed in the same building or locale as a Thames proper information centre, properly budgeted. So I don't feel confident making decisions about any of these options until we've unpicked that whole destination, promotion, marketing. I see as information centres as absolutely vital. I appreciate your very passionate speech this morning, because you are the face-to-face and the person who's giving that nurturing and saying, what are you interested in? I can make recommendations to you. Why don't we just put a chunk of money in at status quo, but have a review of how it's going to fit in with the wider picture of marketing the district?
So thank you, Delhi. If I can send a message back to Lorna and the team, what I would suggest very strongly is that councillors want to support the information centres and the work that they do. They feel that the current model of funding and the current distribution spread doesn't give us enough information on which to make the option choices that we need. And so there's a number of factors, the different visitor spread in different parts of the district. You know, Coromandel, with respect, Councillor Morrissey, doesn't get 100,000 visitors at Beach Hop. So it is different in different parts of the district. We need some more options to make sure that whatever is decided for Thames is robust and adequately funded. The work that Graham and his team do in Whangamata is absolutely vital and is reflective of what's going on around the rest of the district. We want some more options. Please. Is that fair to say? No. No?
Yes.
You don't want more options?
I don't believe that's a very fair ask of staff. They can give us options to bring the sky down if they want to, but it's going to be at a financial cost. And they are actually doing very well just by bringing this paper today. In fact, Len, I don't go by standing orders anymore, but I move option 1 if I've got a seconder, and I'd like to deal with it.
Only we need to talk to it still.
I've got a motion on the floor.
Doesn't matter.
I've
we can
moved,
still
I've got
talk
a
to it.
seconder.
I do, yep. So, thank you, Councillor Morrissey.
Can you rehear the motion?
So the only thing I would say about option 1 is that it calls for a review of the KPIs, and I think it needs more than that. So,
Yeah.
but we have a motion on the floor. Proposed by Councillor Morrissey. Have we got a seconder for that? Seconder, Robin. So for option 2, request the Chief Executive direct staff to implement option 1, retain status quo for the next 3-year period while also reviewing all of the KPIs. Right.
So we
And
can,
finding a new service for Thames, is it?
Yes, sorry.
Yes, it takes that opportunity away.
so
I am happy if somebody wants to put an amendment to my motion, I could actually, if I agree, then that's a possibility. So Delhi, if you are thinking something along those lines, please let's hear it. You can put it to the motion.
I'll come to you in a second. I'm going to propose an amendment to option 2.
Option one.
Option 1, sorry. While also reviewing all of the key performance indicators and funding allocations. We can. Right. Are we able to look at, are you happy with that amendment, Councillor Morrison?
So while we're waiting for it to magically appear, just so I understand this, you're asking staff to status quo, so we're with the current service for the next 3 years, but we're all asking them to look at a service for Thames, KPIs, the models and the funding. So we're not really asking them to look at status quo, are we?
No.
In any of those areas?
The amendment.
In terms of status quo, that gets us through
Funding.
LTP.
Funding, it gets us through the funding.
So because we are in this LTP phase at the moment, we've got to have something in there for LTP.
So I think it needs to read retain a status quo funding on the current service, et cetera, while also reviewing all of the key performance indicators and operational models. So the funding allocation comes out of there because we've retained the status quo funding, but we've got room to move on the KPIs and the operational model. And we can always top.
And I think it's clear that we're trying to say we're not asking for more money. We asked for the same money for the last 3 years, for the next 3 years, nothing more. It's just how it's funded. So there's no increase in funding requestment. This is just how it's paid.
Let's just move on with this, Terry. I've got a motion on the
I'm
floor.
just making the point, John.
No,
Okay,
Thank
are you talking to the resolution that's on the floor now?
Yeah.
All right, are you,
So I'm saying that the funding model is okay, but how it's funded is not okay.
okay, we're going to put the motion.
Yeah.
Martin, sorry, I skipped past you there.
Would it be helpful if it said retain the status quo district funding?
You put that in? You happy, Mr. Mover?
I am just going to call on Ari to make sure that what I'm doing is right and that we had the original motion. Do we have to show the amendment separate from that original motion, Ari, or is it all right to incorporate it straight away like this?
You can incorporate it straight away
And
through the chair.
Thank you. Then I'm happy with the amended motion.
I'm happy with it too.
The chair just remove the words option 1.
Okay. All right, we'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? You want that recorded?
Yeah, it's not addressing my issue, I don't think. If you go to the status quo of district funding on the current setup, it doesn't address what we're trying to do. I would have thought, is that right?
Councillor Walker, you just said we're not asking for more money.
No, but we're asking how it's paid. So is that clearly in that saying not asking for money, but it's saying district funded? How's it in district funded at the moment?
Your 53,000 will remain district funded as it always has been, Terry. The
increases as per CPI.
Increases with the cost of living or whatever. But if you want to retain, have the extra 30,000, it's got to come from your community. And just one point, libraries, and I stand to be corrected on this, are locally funded. They are not district funded. Am I correct on
What's
that?
locally funded?
Libraries.
No, they're not. They're district funded. We pay district funder for Thames, Mercury Bay and Tyrrell.
Can we get a staff opinion on that?
Locally funded libraries.
Locally funded.
We've
libraries.
moved off the resolution now, and I'm going to put a stop to that. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Is your
Appreciate
library
it.
locally funded?
Yes.
What are we up to?
Okay, we're up to the discretionary fund.
So we're going back, aren't we? Okay.
How's everyone feeling?
Are we on item 2.5 now?
Discretionary budgets amount is in the holding tank and make it down to amalgamate. Maintain its discretionary budget. Not that one.
All right, so let's do that. Thank you. Okay, guys, we have gone back to item 2.5, Community Board Contestable and Discretionary Grants. I'm going to propose an amended motion here, which Ari has very kindly prepared and is going to put up on the screen. Oh, it's just a motion. All right, thank you. So Ari has very kindly helped by pointing out it's not an amended motion, it's just a motion. Would you like, where do you keep your gavel? Would you like to be ejected from the chambers?
Sorry about that, I was just turning the state 25A like you mentioned. 40 minutes notice. That wasn't me.
Thank you. Okay. So we're going to item 2.5. We've got a resolution coming up on the screen, which is proposed by me, so I'm going to move it as soon as we can see it. Yes, please.
Through the chair, so the motion that you put up is approves option 1, reinstate the overall amount of contestable grant funding and discretionary budgets at the same amount as in the 2021-31 long-term plan, and make a change to amalgamate the contestable grant funding and discretionary budgets to be managed as a discretionary budget.
So I'm moving it. We have a seconder and I'll open it for discussion. So Dally first and then Peter.
I'm quite uncomfortable with taxing ratepayers to give money back to ratepayers, given that we're looking down the barrel of quite a big rates increase. I do not support maintaining that level of grant, and I only support a reduced amount of discretionary funding that can be given to organisations as a hand up, and not the same organisations getting a hand out year after year. So no, I think we have a duty of care to put money into things like information centres, but splashing money around that's the ratepayers' money and giving it back to select groups of people in the community, I don't support.
Thank you, Councillor Connell. Councillor Rebel, please. Yes. No? Okay. So I'm going to we'll come to Martin, and then I'll make a couple of comments on reasons why I've done this.
What I heard last year and also this year is the amount of administration effort that the current system for contestable grant funding puts on staff. There's a huge amount, and also if they don't spend it or an event gets postponed or whatever, then there's another whole process that has to happen to go back before the community board saying, can we carry it over? So I think I would support a review into making it more efficient, which is mentioned in here. But my second point is that we quite clearly told our community last year that it was for a one-off, and I think there was the expectation that it would be reinstated back to at least the same level. So I'm not prepared to have that funding at any less of a level than what it was for the 21-31 LTP. But I do want to make it simpler, so and make it so that it can be spread over it. You know, if they say we're going to postpone it for a year, then it can be very, very easily agreed that it can be put forward to a project for the following year. Just make the process simpler so we don't have to have staff spending weeks and weeks of time presenting it to their community boards.
Thank you, Councillor Wadley. John Morrison.
Thanks, Len. Hey, I'll be speaking in support and voting in support of that resolution. It's a great thing for our community board up in Coromandel. It's saved our bacon and helped us assist the community with those unforeseen things that come up during the year. So and amalgamating them together, it's fantastic at that level. So definitely be voting in support of that.
Thank you. Rebecca and then Robin, please.
I have some concerns because discretionary budgets there's not a lot of criteria around them. So, in some cases, some of these boards have got big chunks of money. And if
the grants at least are packaged with some policies and things around them. So I have a bit of a concern approaching it this way. And just so that I'm clear, the table on page 160, that is the amount that we're proposing for each ward plus an additional 20K. Is that correct? Is that what that resolution is asking for? Yeah, no, I can't support that.
Thank you. Okay. Robin, and then I'll make a few comments. Oh, sorry. Peter, did you have your hand up? Okay, Robin and then Peter.
I absolutely agree with what you're saying in that the contestable grants is a very discrete project that is well advertised. The criteria is absolute and people know what they're getting, know what they're applying for, know why they've been rejected because they've applied for something that's out of the scope. And so I have a similar issue and a worry with that. Although I do recognise that it takes up a lot of staff time. So I'm sort of uncomfortably on the fence, but leaning towards the option one as presented in the paper, which is contestables and discretionaries together. I would also just like to bring the voice of the Thames Community Board here, because I did canvass the Community Board and they were in favour of option one. And I can say that my chair isn't turning purple, is it? That's good. Got a thumbs up.
Option one is in this, or is the option one that's
the option that I presented to them was the original option one, which is the reinstate contestable grant funding and discretionary budgets to the same amount.
Thank you. Peter, please.
Yeah, look, I'd like to just say that I'm in favour of the grants being discretionary. I think when it's contestable, it's kind of like you're discovering that there's a pot of money. Let's see if we can get a slice of the pot of money, as opposed to a discretionary thing, which I think is much more likely. Oh, look, we've been working on this for the last 2 years. I wonder if we might be able to approach the community board or whatever it's to get funding out of that. So that's the first thing. I'll be strongly in favour of being discretionary, in addition to all the staff issues and so on. Secondly, we did make a commitment that we would be reducing the grants last year for just that year. The decision was just for that year, and I think implicit in that is that we would be restoring them. So I would be in favour of restoring them to 21-31 LTP levels. And the third thing is, I think it is respectful and empowering to our community boards that they have a sensible amount of money to be doing the things that are there locally, that they can, there's money there that they could put towards an information centre or whatever it might be. So I'd be supporting that wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Councillor Rebel. I'll make a few points since it was me that proposed this slightly amended motion. And these are my thoughts in behind this. The activities of community groups and the thousands of hours of unpaid work they do goes to the very heart of what we are as a community. And every single one of you around this table has been involved in community groups in one way or another, and giving your time, working alongside people who give their time for free. We've been elected and trusted with the responsibility to decide whether each ratepayer should contribute a small amount and how much. And they are small amounts if you look at the ratepayer contribution per annum. And that includes the non-resident ratepayers who get the benefit of the community work that's done, even though they're not necessarily here for a good part of the year. We're talking about local empowerment, and I'll come back to Councillor Rebel's point. When we expect our community boards to be empowered and to have the responsibility and the authority to make these decisions, and yet there's no funding for them to do that, then we are not fulfilling our obligations in terms of local empowerment. If community boards get a project and they don't think it has merit, under the discretionary funds, they can say two things. First of all, we want to engage with the community and talk to them and find out more about it. And then they can decide not to support it. If it's a contestable fund, then what happens is the people go away, they fill in forms, they send it in, And quite often, the people applying for a contestable fund never engage with community board at all. And I've been down that road many times. So I would suggest that those factors, engagement with communities, local empowerment, and the ability for community boards to have control and discretion over those funds are the key points behind what I'm proposing here. And the point's been made about contestable grant funding. It's very, very labour intensive for staff. And it's not efficient for the small amounts of money and the amount of work and time that it takes for staff. So I'll go to Councillor Walker and then I'd like to put the motion, if that's all right, please.
Well, I'm not going to be easy, so I support exactly what you say, Lee. And if you ask the community boards, they have the intelligence and understanding of the community to know which grants are worth it and which aren't, and who should go back and do some more work. So support it 100%.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Okay, so we've got a motion in front of us. Could I get, so we're going to receive the report and we're going to vote on item 2 that's up on the board there. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Aye. Recorded, 1, 2, 3. Got those? All right. You happy to have those recorded? All right. Thank you. That item is carried. Thank you. Appreciate your time, councillors. Where are we up to? Thank you. And we've got partnership agreements, 2.7. All right.
Through the chair, we have Dean available to speak to this.
So I'll ask for a movement and a seconder to receive the reports, please. Daly and seconder. John, thank you. Dean, Lorna, I'll open it to you.
Yep. Good afternoon, Councillor. So we're on 2.7, which is on page 171. And the purpose of the report is to seek direction on the review and approach to partnership agreements. The recommendation is to approve maintaining the existing partnership agreement arrangement for the first 3 years of the LTP, but in doing so, review the KPIs and the contracts to align those partnership agreements with council strategic direction to the best that they can be. And then we'll develop a new policy which will enable a full review in 2024. And so that will inform the 27 to 37 LTP. So we won't be able to conduct a full review with a policy in place, but what we will be able to do is work with those partners to refine those KPIs and those contracts and to make those changes. In doing so, we'll work with the boards and, if required, the Sustainability Committee to actually look at some of those agreements. And when we go out and work with those partners, we'll be clear that we would like to keep the budgets either the same or encourage savings through that process. I'd just like to make a point that the recommendation wasn't written for any of the recipients in particular. What it was, we expect that naturally there'll be some groups that will want more and some groups that could do with less. So it's been written for all of the recipients. And that's because across the 39 local and 5 district recipients, there's a range of impacts that could take place if we were to change some of those funding agreements. And so the proposal is asking that we get that full understanding before making those substantive changes. We give the boards and those groups the chance to be involved. And yeah, just noting that because of some of those agreements being rolled over for 10 or 20 years, we really would like to give a lead in if there's going to be change. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean. Rebecca and then Robin, please.
Thanks. Just quickly, I just want all of us to remember that this is almost 1% of our rates. So that's just something that we should all be keeping in mind. But I had a question, and in our ward a couple of years ago, FENS kind of came in and picked up and worked with a lot of our local volunteer fire brigades and things like that. And I see that Thames still supports Tapu and what was the other one? Yes, fire brigades, and wondered why that support wouldn't have been picked up by FENS.
Again, that's why we want to do a light review and just look into that and see if there's other options that they can investigate around that they could be supported through a different measure in a different way.
Yeah, okay, that would be good. But remember, 1%.
Robin?
I was really just going to say thank you. The report seems quite clear. I enjoyed, and my understanding was enhanced by the extra dialogue that you added, Dean, and when the time comes, I'm happy to be the mover for this.
Thank you. Martin?
So, yeah, this is a question, but I've had it answered by Dean, but I thought it might be useful. There are some of these grants that have been like on a sliding scale. So for instance, it might be a 30, 20, 10, but then that just keeps getting rolled over. So it's a 30, 20, 10. But to confirm, the figures that you've used in this report table starting on 177 is based on the average per year.
Yep, so through the chair, thank you for the question ahead of time. It's allowed me to do the research that I've needed to. So the figures on page 177 are all from year 2 of the LTP, because year 3 there was a few changes in year 3, and they are all the same amounts given to each group year after year after year for all of them except the 2 Coromandel Heritage Trust Treasury payments. And with the Treasury, it was 30,000 in year 1, 20,000 in year 2, 10,000 in year 3, in both local and district. So that would amount to 60, 40 and 20. And so the figures you see there are the year 2, which happens to be the average.
Terry, one question before we come to you. Just clarification, I noticed you've got Whangamata swimming pool one-off grant for capital works. Now that was locally funded through, and I don't want to say targeted rate, it was a local rate, but it was part of another process, but that was not district funded, wasn't it? And that has all been allocated now, so that does not have a district-wide impact. Okay, so if we take that 893 and we take 250,000 off that on a district basis, that gives us a different number, quite a significantly different number.
That's right. So through the chair, that was the point I was going to raise. Also around the libraries, I don't see the libraries in any one except for Whangamata's there for 74,000. So I don't know why the libraries don't show. Or
So the Te Pānui and Coromandel Town are in there?
Coromandel does, yeah.
Do they form part of the partnership agreements, the libraries, or are they separate? Okay, thank you.
Just trying to get my head around that. We actually applied for an increase from 74,000 to $80,000, which was a library committee came to the community board and asked for that. And that was put into our program that came forward to council. And also the Poetry Hall for $5,000. They've built that hall, they've got that money, so I don't see where that fits in now. So there's some discussion around that.
Delhi, please.
Cognizant of Councillor Jerry Percival's 1%, it looks, all of the wards are under 100K, and Coromandel is well under 100K. But even if we take the 250 out of Whangamatara, it's still over NDK. So I'm just wondering about equity. We're trying to cut back. We're trying to not have big rate increases. Is there any way we can massage that? What's the explanation?
That forms part of the review that's being proposed in option 1. So we maintain the existing partnership agreements for the first 3 years of the next LTP. The review of KPIs and contracts to align with a full review 2024 ahead of the 2027-37 LTP. I guess the thing that councillors have to be comfortable with is that this proposal pushes the review back to 2024 and it would not kick in until 2027. Have I got that right or not?
Could I just, from a process perspective though, in the new year, we'll be taking all of these contracts for the ward contracts to all the community boards and reviewing the contracts, looking at the KPIs and where savings can be made, and going back to those organisations as part of this process before the 1st of July 2024.
Does that help us in terms of where we need to be for our LTP? If we approve this today, are we on track for our LTP?
Yeah, so through the chair, this is seeking to give us a start point for the LTP, so that we've got the direction of the budget in there. If we do find savings through looking at the KPIs and looking at the contracts, then that's good news. But if not, it would be part of the more substantive review.
So the review will happen next year. It'll happen, and there'll be an LTP process which allows communities to feedback as part of the LTP submission process. This basically gets us through the next stage so that we can get on with LTP work. So makes sense to me. I'm going to propose that we move in. Well, Robin's moved it. I'm sorry, I forgot. Can I get a second? Oh, sorry, Rika.
I'll second it.
Rika's.
I do have a question about, so there's some of the smaller libraries are supported in Coromandel, Hahei, places like that, Kuaotunu get some money, but Whangamatā, the library has a massive grant there. Shouldn't that be being funded not via grants? Because all of the rest of our libraries.
It's a partnership agreement with the service provider. So it's not a district
library.
It's a partnership agreement with its service provider, but it is district funded.
No, it's the only district funded libraries are Thames and Whitianga and Tairua. Okay. So all the other ones are community funded.
Partnerships.
They're all locally funded.
They're all locally funded. That's confusing.
Okay.
So we should have the name should be changed. District funded, not district library, not. Okay, forget it. All right. We need to move this on, and the review will happen next year. We've got the motion. Do we have a seconder? John Morrissey seconded. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Well done. Okay. At 3 o'clock, we need to, no, we've got Business Association funding decisions. It'll be a long day, guys. It's a long day.
She needs a gin, not a chin. Back of the room.
Okay, so item 2.8, Business Association funding decisions. I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder for this to receive the motion, please, the report. Martin, seconder, you've got your light on, so you seconded it?
Just receive it. Okay, then can I put a motion on down?
We have a motion in front of us. We can do whatever we like.
Okay, so would be to support option 1.
And I'll second that. But hang on, just before I second that,
Option 1, which is do nothing, which is to not fund them. I believe they should be standalone, fund themselves,
Yeah.
organisations,
yeah, I thought I jumped.
as they
too
were
soon.
pre-weather events.
I'll second that. Do you want to speak to that?
Let me get to my right page first.
We even heard from one of the business associations this morning that said that they should be standalone organisations that stand on their own 2 feet. I believe they all were pre-storm events. They got a great influx of money, which helped get through a tricky time. This is, as we've sort of been banging on about, a really difficult time with some big rate numbers, and I think we really need to look at where we allocate additional funding, and I believe that the business associations should be standing on their own 2 feet. They have members that they can tap into, fundraising events and things that they can tap into. This isn't something, the ratepayers are looking after things like info centres. Yeah, so I believe option 1.
John Grant, please.
Thank you. I also support option 1. However, I would just put a couple of riders with my support of option 1. First of all, my understanding is that the funding that has been received has not been funding from Thames Coromandel District Council. It was actually MB funding that was channeled through Thames Coromandel District Council. So it's not as if we have set a precedent really in regard to that level of funding, and I think everybody was quite clear from the start that that was special funding that related to the recovery of the cyclone and COVID, you know, and the situation that everybody was in over that period of time. However, I think what it has shown also is the role that the business associations can play, and specifically what they do and the good they do in the community. And I think that that is something that is very closely aligned to the work of the economic development team in the council. And I think that they are a logical extension of that. Albeit on a mostly unpaid basis in the community. And therefore, I'd like to suggest that whilst we don't have any specific funding as per option 1, that there be a pool of funding available through the economic development team that would be available for specific purposes that relate to economic development activities that would have to be applied for and meet a criteria. And I appreciate that that would involve some extra work, so I'm not looking to try and sort of pass a motion now, but I think that it would be worth, when there is time, to go back through that and actually have a look at that, because I think there are a lot of synergies and things that could actually be developed that would tap into the good that that those local business associations can actually provide and support the economic development team with in the community.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. I think that was very well stated. Councillor Morrissey.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Then Robin and then Martin.
All right, I think business associations are a fantastic organisation to have operating in a town. They give a voice to your businesses, and council can hear a collective rather than just individuals. However, having said that, and I'll turn out, they bounced ahead when we got that mayoral relief money into them. That was a godsend, and they are on a strong footing. But I really have reservations about funding them. Some of the reasons I covered this morning, one is that not every business wants to be part of a business association. Business associations can talk about shared benefit going around the total economy, but the reality is some businesses are struggling. And I know of a business here in Thames, in the main street, that's turned off their hot water cylinder just simply because they can't afford the power. An additional, and this is a true story, the additional money that they would be expected to contribute through the economic development rate would be just horrible for them. They can't run their hot water. So yeah, I'm definitely supporting option one. Not every business association actually wants this funding either, and I have my community board chair behind me who will verify that the Coromandel Colville Business Association doesn't believe it's the right thing to rate for. They do believe that they should be seeking extended membership and other funding. They are not keen on seeing ratepayer support be used to prop up the association. So I will definitely be supporting option one.
I'm going to ask Robin to speak at 3 o'clock. We've got to pass a motion to extend. And if we don't do that.
Excellent. Really, I can quite happily support option one, particularly given the previous item where we've increased the discretionary budgets. Well, we've reinstated the amount of money that the community boards have as a discretionary budget, because I see this as an opportunity to get some synergistic projects happening. So I would imagine this would be able, we will, with this funding and with this decision not to fund the business associations, we've got an opportunity to then have conversations about what's going to be good for business in our towns, but also what is suitable and appropriate for the ratepayer to pay. So I'm very, very happy to support it. I particularly liked your comments. Thank you, Councillor Grant. And since it's 3 o'clock, I'm also really happy to move a motion that we extend.
Please do.
Okay.
Second. No,
So
the clock runs from
6 hours.
9.
Yeah.
The clock runs from 9, so it doesn't take into account the lunch breaks. So we had a seconder over here. All those in favour?
Aye, with a short break.
I'm going to take a bathroom break. Sorry, guys. Thanks, Graham. Cheers, mate. Okay, Business Association funding. Reka has proposed option 1. I want to speak to this very briefly. And I think one of the things that became clear to all of the team and staff and those councillors and community board members and staff who were working directly with the business community was when we had all the storm events and we saw an opportunity to use MB funding to get in behind these business associations, what we saw was a massive revitalisation of the business communities and the work that they did out in the communities and with not just with the businesses but with their communities in general. That gave a real shot in the arm at a time when it was needed, and it was driven by the business community and the leaders themselves. The fact that we were able to do it with MB funding and there was no impact on ratepayers was fantastic. I would like to try and keep the door open. I know we've got concerns and we've got responsibilities for ratepayers' money, but in reality, I think there are options there to look at, explore opportunities for a mix of community support, council support, and explore additional business funding to get this, to maintain this level of energy and enthusiasm which we had not seen for a while. Now, you heard Peter Hunt from Tairua talk about 60 members and a real revitalisation. What he didn't say was that before this work that was done and put the Tairua Business Association together, there was no business association. So that business association and the work that they did was a direct result of the MB funding and the work that came out of that storm event. So all I would do is say to councillors, please keep an open mind, keep an eye on what the opportunity is and the contribution that this revitalised work in energy has contributed to our communities. Don't close your minds to that opportunity. Peter, please.
Thanks, Len. So I have a fundamental belief that a business association can make a huge contribution to economic development. Having a business association that is that functions well, that advocates on behalf of businesses, that represents the voice of business, I think is incredibly powerful. In my own experience here in Thames a few years ago, where there was the whole issue of the Kopu marine development, and it was the business association that brought together some key players out of the business community who formed a strategic subgroup of the Thames Business Association who represented to council the economic benefit of the Kopu marine development, and it was that kind of instigated the, or got us past the bit of a roadblock around that. And that's just an example of I think the advocacy work that a business association can be done. As John pointed out, following the funding from MB for Gabriel, it put wind under the wings of the existing business associations and engendered some new ones. And because of my fundamental belief that business associations can make a significant contribution to economic development, I think that was a good thing. I understand and would appreciate that in some areas the size and the kind of activity of a business association might differ. Here in Thames, we have a big, industrial component, which is important to some of the things that go on in town. And the business association is well connected with those businesses and to the benefit of the community. In another area where you don't have that, I can understand that the business association might have a narrower remit or less work to do or whatever. But certainly for a place like Thames, I think the breadth and the remit is large. I would therefore be supporting probably a model that reflects more option 2C, in the sense that I think it would be really powerful. I think it would continue to promote economic development if the Thames Business Association had access to $60,000. Now, whether that was done by a grant or whether that was done by, just handing them the money, or whether it was done in the way the TIF funding was done, or the MB funding was done, where I think it was allocated by project or whatever it is. But, the fact that there is that if you like, baseline funding that enables them to continue to do the good things that a business association could do. So I'm not sure if it's an option, but I would be wanting to say option 2 something or other, which says at least the Thames Business Association gets access to that amount of money. But I think that would also apply in other areas. I mean, I can see it absolutely making sense in Whitianga and Whangamata,
We actually have
etc.
a motion on the table, don't we? So he's actually not supporting the motion. He's seeking to amend it or something, are you?
So
I'm
I've
looking at
opened up for
discussion around the options, and I'm looking at
We have a
option
motion on the-
2C.
We have a motion on the table.
Okay, so can I be guided by governance? Because we've got a motion doesn't mean we can't have discussion on the motion.
Yes, we can have a discussion on the motion.
That's what we're doing. So I'm quite
But through the chair, I think Councillor Gottlieb's saying that he thinks that Councillor Rebel is proposing another option.
Oh, I understand. Okay, thank you. I understand. So thank you, Councillor Gottlieb and Councillor Rebel. Now I've made the connection. You were discussing the motion and then proposed an option. Even I'm sure that's not what your intention was. Yeah, so, all right. So have you finished? Can I ask you if you're happy to leave your discussion as contributing to the motion rather than coming back to a proposal which is different from the option that's on the table? Okay, thank you. All right, Martin. So we're still discussing the motion that's on the table.
Promise not to make any amendments to the motion. I find myself probably supporting option 1. And I think just listening to in the public forum with all the different business associations and all that I was just struck by the huge variety in their mix of businesses. One was basically, virtually no retail. It's hospitality and accommodation and tourism. And Councillor Revel was just said about the huge contribution that our TBA made in the industrial area for Kopu and supporting to government departments about that, getting that funding and that project across the line. And I think also we would be really weighing down our business associations with, if we came up with KPIs for them to have to adhere to and report on. And I think we would probably end up losing people from those business associations, because no one would want to be on the board if they were having to spend half their time reporting on the various KPIs. I think potentially it could kill some business associations, and then potentially they would lose their subscriptions that some of the businesses are paying, because the businesses will say, oh, well, council's funding that. So they may end up being just in exactly the same boat, just with council money rather than business money. So yeah, I'm finding myself wanting to support the business associations, but I could just see it being a huge bureaucratic mess about how it would be administered. So I'm going to be supporting option one, but loving the work the business associations do.
So I'm going to ask Councillor Walker and then Councillor Morrissey to speak, and then I'm going to put the motion as it stands for supporting option one. All right, so Terry, then John.
Okay, so thank you. So I support what Councillor Rodley said, and I also believe that we're getting into a bit of a mess if we start to have a whole lot of expectations from these organisations, which tend to be a little bit fluctuating themselves. They're not one of our key assets in town. They've got the ability to form their own structures, and we've got a club package in town which they can apply through the contestable fund to help them with their IT and their accounts. So yeah, I support option one, and I think that's the best way to leave it. And if there is a contestable fund, well, so be it. I'm happy with that as well, but may not be the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. No, Councillor Morrissey. All right, so we're going to put the motion as it stands to approve. Is that an amendment? So approve option one.
Through the chair, it's a motion. It's a motion that was proposed by Councillor Giddy Percival.
So do we need wording for that motion, or we just?
Through the chair, we do have wording if you would like to see it.
Okay, can we bring it on the screen or just do it verbally? The motion is to approve option one.
Yeah, yes, it is. Approves option one, do nothing, do not fund business associations.
There you go. You happy with that verbal wording? Right, so we have a mover in Councillor Gary Percival and a seconder. Councillor Morrissey. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Councillor Rebel. All right. So that motion to approve option one, do nothing and do not fund, is carried. Thank you, team. Yes, please. So Aileen's got some clarifications, please.
Region Rainman, if this isn't procedurally correct, but there's two outstanding items. There was a discussion about an ED fund that could be used, and there was also the year one is basically a no impact to councillors in terms of using recovery funding. So both of those two are still options without a ratepayer impact, which I think was the gist of the resolution that we just heard.
So that allows us to continue some activity in the meantime without any impact on ratepayer. So is that something that's acceptable to councillors without getting formal about it?
So the recovery funding, you would see year one, we were proposing that was recovery funded. So that's from the existing recovery money. So we could either go ahead with that or not without an impact on ratepayers. And then the second idea, which would be an impact, was the discussion around having an ED fund that could be accessed for specific projects.
That was to be 125k across the 5.
One option is to carry on in much the same way that we've been working around the MB funding, which is that we invite the business associations to propose projects for funding, and then those projects are reviewed by the economic development team, and we make sure that they're aligned with our objectives strategically, and we help them be successful in what they're doing, and so that's a way that could be delivered.
So would they have to have a recovery impact, or just the fact that they're an event and drawing people to town?
So our priority is now that the roads are restored, that visitor attraction is less of a priority, and that we would like to see them conducting activities that are more aligned to our economic development objectives.
Okay, so at the moment, we don't have a resolution in front of us to allow that to go ahead. Am I right? Do we need to put another resolution, or can that just be something that we ask the economic development team to go ahead and do because there is no ratepayer funding?
Yeah, I think if you just give us a steer as to whether you think that's a useful activity, then I think we can probably do it under delegated authority.
Okay, so councillors, are you happy for the chief executive to carry on with that? Councillor Grant.
Absolutely. But because that is very much aligned to what I was trying to say a little earlier. So I would just like to, and I'm sure it's probably would be naturally done in any case, is to put some information together that would enable people to understand the areas that funding, specifically should be focused around, and a little bit of detail around that. Do we have any idea, what sort of dollars are we sort of talking about here?
It's 125 in the first year.
So we could, it's through the chair, so that would be through year one of the LTP and be used with business associations. I know Mitch has also said aligning with the ED activity, but also acknowledging that there is a lag from when businesses have been impacted. It does still take time to recover, and they still won't, a lot of them may not have over summer. So it's about how we can use that, and we can put some criteria around it.
So what I've heard is ED focused, around the specific plans project and not overhead costs.
Okay, so we've got support for that from councillors. There's no ratepayer impact.
Do we need to have a resolution?
It doesn't sound like
No.
we do, right? We've just,
I've kind of got something.
okay, let's do it.
Let's look
We haven't got it
forward
yet.
to-
Councillor Gray is keen.
You might just want to check it first, so.
I don't care what you propose, I'll move it anyway. All right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So it's so formal.
Perhaps instead of using the word funding the business associations, we could say support. Yep, and then that just changes the way that we use the word funding.
Yeah,
Yep.
I like that. Thanks, Mitch. I'm doing it on the fly, so.
That's awesome.
And the amount of money too, Ari, that 125,000? 125,000, you need to put the amount?
Yes. So that would be to recovery fund?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Lorna. Okay, councillor Grant is proposing the motion. Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Revel, all those in favour? Thank you, carried. Chief Executive report. All those in favour? Sorry, I'll take that back. Over to you, Amy.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I think probably take the report as read. The important part in this report is page 274, 275, where we have outlined everything that we've been through over the last few months in terms of the process around the workshops we've been through, the prioritisation, and the CapEx and the OpEx budgets are attached there. So we have taken this forward into the LTP modelling, and we are sort of a long way down the track in terms of producing a document ready for audit, who are here too soon, January. They're here in January to audit. So what we're looking for is an endorsement of this, which is the last output from the last workshop, for the purposes of audit to go forward into that, for the preparation of the consultation document. So there should be nothing in here that you've not already seen. We do have to point out two incorrect numbers where they were put in as thousands instead of millions.
Yep, page 284 under roading. There was an error under one of the 100% Crown funded resilience projects, Tapu Proglen Road. And as Aileen has said, they were put in as 13,000 instead of 13 million. That was spotted and corrected in the model in the background, but unfortunately it wasn't picked up in time for the agenda. So plus it's 100% Crown funded, so it didn't have the impact that it might have had if it was something that council was funding. So you'll see there at the far kind of right hand side of the page, there's a couple of 13s and they should be 13,000 because they're in thousands, so that should be 13 million each of those.
So Bruce, will those pages be recirculated to councillors, or do we just wait until the next stage when them and everything? Okay, so we've just acknowledged that those errors have been identified and fixed, and then when they come back to the draft ready for audit and for going out to consultation, they will be corrected. Okay, so thank you. I'm happy with that. Yeah, we're going to be discussing the resolutions. I think it needs to be clearly acknowledged that the individual items in terms of CapEx and OpEx have been extensively discussed, and we've reached a point now where these have to be signed off today to go out for public consultation, and where there is continued community input that on our communities want to have input on individual lines, that will happen as part of the consultation process. So the community members that I'm speaking to, inviting them to make submissions, those submissions will go through a hearing process, and we'll get another opportunity to hear and respond to those submissions from individual community members. We have run out of time now to make any changes to this work because it has to be signed.
With respect, there are a number of items here I've marked, and some have been moved up and changed and around, and I'm concerned about a number, and I think this is very important and we need to discuss them.
So we can discuss them, Councillor Gottlieb, but we can't make any changes because we've run out of time.
I'm sorry.
We have a timeline.
If the majority of us don't agree with them, they can be changed.
So how do you propose that we deal with the LTP timeline and the fact that we got auditors here in
Well,
January?
There's items here. It seems there's no, let me just get clear. Coastal hazards management, that's the top one. There's no funding to be spent for some time. Is that correct? I can park that. Okay, let me just flip over. We then get to the Thames sub-regional aquatic facility, etc., etc. They're talking about spending money there pretty well next year, correct?
That is scoped in the LTP because we are.
But it just seems to me you haven't got a place for it yet. It just seems to be jumping the gun by a mile. Next one is we've got this Thames headquarters, which I'm still very concerned about spending money on, and I just alert you to that. Then we get to onto the roading, the Thames, the Totra Valley, and that's come back. And I raised last time, do we have a developer? and I don't think we have a developer. And you propose to spend 11.2 million over a period of time, and I just think that is a total nonsense. And it looks like the Coromandel bypass is now government funded, so we don't have to worry about that. But those are the ones I just raised initially, and I'm quite concerned about. I don't have any other councillors want to mention what I've mentioned, but I've just highlighted those ones.
Thank you, councillor Gottlieb. That's been noted, and there's no problem with you raising those. The individual items, I think, have been discussed quite extensively by council, and they will be discussed again when we go out for submissions and the community has their say, and we come back and make final decisions for the LTP. So, but your concerns are noted.
What I'm really concerned about is this Totara Valley extension. Now,
what would you like us to do, councillor Gottlieb?
Well, one, are we
Delay the
doing this?
LTP
Are we
process.
doing this without a developer? Because that seems to be the case.
There is a developer, councillor Gottlieb.
Well, I gather you've seen what was meant to be before the Thames Community Board, and it's now been taken off the site, where the council's been buying land off sections to extend the road. I can just send it off to all councillors now if you want to have a look at it, but that was going to be at the Thames Community Board. That's now been taken off. I'll send it off to you. I sent it off to Rika a little while ago. And I just am somewhat concerned that this is happening, but...
So what would you like us to do, councillor Gottlieb?
I think we need to reflect very carefully on this.
When?
Well, now I think it's more important than going on to other things at the moment. Let me just see, where am I? Here we are. I'll send it on to you now.
Okay, thank you. I've got Robin, please, and then Martin, and then Rika. Okay, Martin.
So in previous workshops and meetings, when this has been raised about there not being a developer and the council doing work and the developer getting a free ride, it's been explained, A, that there is a developer and we've seen plans, and I think we've explained that at least 2 or 3 times. And secondly, that there will still be developer contributions to the infrastructure that will be put in for the development. And with respect, I think we need to get away from this, there is no developer, which Councillor Gottlieb keeps saying. We have people, we've seen plans, we've discussed this a number of times. And yeah, I would like to echo the Mayor's point. What would you like us to do?
Well, take it off the board because it shouldn't be there. I've just
Sorry, under what? Take it off the board under what?
So
rating.
I'm going to ask.
I've sent to the councillors what was on the Thames board council agenda, which has been taken off.
Councillor Gottlieb, I'm going to ask Aileen to speak to this, please.
So my understanding is in the last long-term plan, which is before I was here and before some of the councillors around the table were here, in the last LTP process, council consulted specifically on the matter of developing the area, Totara Valley area. It was a $6 million package and it included a bunch of things, the things you would normally expect: roading, underground infrastructure. There was some stormwater issues, and land acquisition was part of the roading stuff. So as I understand it, we are now a third of the way through that project, and bear in mind it's a package of work that totals up to the $6 million to deliver it. It's been fully consulted upon and decided by this council, and the staff have been working on it. Some of it's gone a little bit slower than we would have liked, and you'll recall when we went into the annual plan process in this year that we had quite a lot of pressure to try and keep the rates down, and we pruned quite dramatically some of our CapEx work on the basis of what we thought we might get done this year. And we also talked about the fact that if we got further ahead with some of the projects unexpectedly, we could come back and do an out-of-cycle request where we were found we didn't have enough money in the budget. And that happens to be one of those projects where we've gone further than we thought we might have, in which case a report was coming through to the community board. At the last minute, we found some technical issues with that report, and that report got pulled, and we'll come back to the community board in the new year once we've corrected those technical difficulties. And I'll just check with Bruce that I have explained that correctly and invite him to add anything extra.
Yep, no, that's all correct. I can't think of anything else to add at this stage. So, but yeah, happy for any other questions. But no, Aileen's captured it well.
Well, I'd like to see all those resolutions, because I've talked to Murray Fox, Murray McLean and others, and they don't quite agree with that.
Those resolutions are available to you, Councillor Gottlieb. There's no
Well, I
issue
think you
with
can
that.
provide them to councillors. I'm not going to have the ability to go through the situation. You say you rely on them, you provide them.
I'm sorry, who's that directed at?
It's directed at the chief executive to arrange. She's just said that they've been passed. I want to see those resolutions because I can't recall them.
With respect, Councillor Gottlieb, if you've got a request of the chief executive, you can couch it in a way that's courteous and polite and respectful, and I don't believe that.
Well, can I please have the resolutions you rely upon for doing the work? There was the 11 million carried out. I knew about that, but what we didn't know about this other work that's being done now, which I've now emailed all councillors, what was meant to be at the Thames Community Board meeting, where the council is being the developer, and you're saying you've got a developer. Can you provide who is the developer? I just need to know that because I'm very uncomfortable with what's
So we're going to move on. Did you want to respond to that?
Just that when an LTP is signed off, that puts in place a whole load of projects that pop out of, in fact, these budgets. So out of these budgets pops a whole bunch of projects and they go into our operations team and they start giving effect to them. And where you've got a $6 million package like that, the whole package goes into the organisation and bits of it start being done. And something like a land development, there's quite a few moving parts in it. And you might look at it and go, actually, we need to retest it. But when you've already got $2 million in the ground, it's, I guess you call that a sunk cost, wouldn't you, if you said we're going to stop this project now? So in some respects, when you've told the community you're going to do a project, which is the $6 million package that was consulted in the last LTP, actually you might have to consult to stop doing the project because that's what you've told the community you're actually doing. So it's tricky to, when you've got a package of work, to kind of stop and start individual pieces of it. You're either committed to the project or you're not bits and pieces of it. So I guess what I'm encouraging councillors to think about it in a holistic sense, not just the little bits that make it up.
Well, you see, when we had that last
Councillor
meeting,
Gottlieb, we've got other councillors who want to speak to this.
well, I'm just trying to educate them.
I'm going to ask you to hold off, please. Rebecca, and then John Morrissey, please.
My question wasn't related to the LTP, so we might be able to come back to the start of the CE's report if you want to finish the LTP conversation.
Okay, thank
Mine
you.
was around waste and recovery. So.
Thank you. So Councillor Morrissey and then Councillor Walker, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. Councillor Gottlieb, I've been around for a little while and Totara Valley's been on the books for a very, very long time. And I've followed the progress of that over a number of years and I'm more than happy and satisfied with the resolutions that have been made and the progress that's been done on that project. It's certainly been a long time coming and it is done, as the CEO says, in dribs and drabs where we can. It's an evolving process, so I have no problems with it. But just to try and clarify what's actually happening at the moment, Gary, we need to get this out for the LTP. This is not your last opportunity or the community's last opportunity to comment what's on those pages there. We'll listen to what the community says when it goes out and they will have an opportunity, as will you, to actually shuffle things around if it's financially prudent and we're able to do so. So what's important is today we get that package out so that it can be talked about with the community and we get another chance to deal with it then. So this is not your last chance to have a bite of the apple or cherry, so to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Councillor Walker, please.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that I have been on the council as well when this was brought up, and it was mainly through the community board, through council and driven by the previous mayor. And it has been raised significantly over that time about the issue of the high risk, risk of doing this project. In fact, they actually asked some developers outside the area whether they'd take it on and they said no. So, but we have been left with a whole lot of unknowns, and I think Gary's got a right to ask those questions because I am a little bit confused about how the process has gone over the time, and it is a high risk project, but let's have a good think about it.
Thank you, councillor Walker. Okay, I'm going to come back to councillor Gary Percival, please.
Thank you. Just at the start of the CE's report, I know these figures are from September, October. There's a huge number of missed collections. It might be a little unfair of me to ask, are we seeing that number trend downwards?
I'll refer that to Mo.
As far as I'm aware, yes, it is trending down.
Good. Yep. So we're feeling ready for the summer months?
It will be a different dynamic during the summer peak period because we're expecting the population to double. We've done as best as we can with waste management to come up with a resourcing plan.
Good.
And it's also the first time they're doing it. So there'll be an element of learning there. And the other thing is we've changed our collection runs as well. We used to have a weekly bag service. We've gone to fortnightly bins, but we are going to do weekly bins.
Over the Christmas
Over the
period?
Christmas
Yeah.
Yep, peak period. So, yeah.
Okay. And sorry, my second question is around recovery. I know we're talking about under the roading, large pieces of network rebuild will be paused until after Waitangi Day. Do we know if Waka Kotahi are thinking the same?
I'm not able to answer that question, but
Yes, I understand it was them that actually told us they were doing that. Are we doing the same? I'm unaware that we are doing the same, are we? We're not.
So we'll try and get into things a little bit earlier than that. We will play it by ear, but obviously we've got some pressure on us around Blackjack Road, for example. So sometimes there's a bit of a lull kind of in that second half of January where you can get in and do some stuff. So the teams will be monitoring the road situation and making a call on that.
Okay, good. And thirdly, just a general bit of feedback, that the LTP spreadsheet, although full of great information, is just near impossible to read.
Yeah.
And I know we've said that before, but yeah, it is.
Just a question in regard to the RFS numbers. I know that we've raised this previously in regard to being able to understand what the clearance rates are like and days that we're waiting for things to be cleared. Are you getting any closer in being able to get a good handle on that?
There's quite a few answers to that question. When you've signed off the annual report today, you'll be able to have a look at some of our non-financial performance measures, and there's a whole range of things in there. And we had some interesting debates with auditors about how quickly we were clearing those responses. But I think what you're referring to is the closing the loop back to the customer. So we're having some internal debates about that. We have the ability right now to say your job is now closed. What we're struggling to say is your job is closed because we did X, Y, and Z with the pothole you complained about. So that's the little part that we're working on at the moment. And we're very conscious that if we just go, we've closed your job, the next thing is a phone call to customer services going, and what did you do? So we're just working through how that system might work and how many templates we set up for a response stream.
Thank you, Aileen.
Could I just ask some clarification of the CEO or maybe one of the staff? But the community board paper that Councillor Gottlieb's just sent out, which is for an increase in the roading budget for land purchase, that's local roads. Is that a local rate or is that a district rate, Bruce?
Local rate.
That's totally funded by the Thames ratepayers.
Correct.
Thank you. So does that might help you put your mind at ease, Gary? The additional funding that was requested, but the paper was withdrawn at the Thames Community Board, the one you just sent me. Yeah, that's the one. So that is not that's for local roading. That's a local road, so that's local rates only. That's not district rates. That's entirely on the Thames ratepayer. Can you clarify, Bruce?
So the road is locally funded through the Thames local rate. It's a Thames local road.
Whole of that road.
Correct.
Total value.
It's a local road. Okay.
You're just also talking about a publicly excluded paper.
I hopefully haven't mentioned it. Was that public? Didn't come
Yes.
through as public excluded. Sorry.
Just saying.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay. I'm going to put the motion, please. So we've got item 1 receives the chief executive report. Item 2 confirm CapEx and OpEx. I'm going to move this motion. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Revel. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you, Aileen. Appreciate that. Okay. I didn't see any. Okay. So Councillor Gottlieb, to be clear, you are voting against us as a council being able to progress this through our LTP process. Okay. And you're aware of the implications of that for us as a council. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to move that the Merrill report on page 298 be received. Can I get a seconder for that, please? Councillor Grant. This is purely a list of the activities from 13th of October till 21st of November. All those in favour? Oh, sorry. Yep, sure.
Under the purpose of the report, additionally, council has an expense and resources policy request. Is that not
Through the chair, that I think the report writer forgot to remove that.
Oh, okay, so
That's
not.
That's a copy from the last report from the 31st of October. So that just needed to be removed.
Take that out. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried. I'd like to move on a seconder, please, to go into public excluded. Councillor.
Second.
Councillor Gary Percival, Councillor Grant. All those in favour? Thank you. We'll wait, please, until we've got ourselves sorted out.